video is terms. Terms and vocabulary. This is going to be really important because if we can help you work through the right terms and understand them, we're going to use these throughout the whole program. You're going to be able to know more of what we're talking about, and you're going to be able to apply what we've been teaching you this entire time. We're going to give you, in the description, there's going to be a little PDF image here. It's going to have a list of all the terms if you need to go back, review. That way you can know everything that we're talking about. If you forget something, you can look it up really easily. All right, so I'm just going to go through a big list of them really quickly. And then there's going to be a couple of these terms we're going to make specific separate videos on so that you can understand them in more depth and know how they fit into you and your life and you getting back into shape. All right, so the first terms that we're going to go over are terms of our transformation cycle. So that is bulk, recomp, cut, and maintenance. And those are different phases of training is what they are. So if you're going into a bulk, this is a phase where you're actually trying to focus on getting stronger. So you want to put on large amounts of muscle in a relatively short amount of time. And so you're going to be increasing your calorie intake. You're going to be trying to put more muscle mass on your body. We'll go more into a bulk and what the importance of that is. The next one is recomp. Recomp is short for recomposition, meaning you're trying to recompose your body. And that is basically two things at once. It means that you're trying to cut the fat or burn fat, body fat, and you're also trying to increase muscle size or at the minimum of maintain it. The next term is a cut. A cut simply means fat loss. We're trying to get the body fat off, whatever that means, whatever it takes. Maintenance means for the time being, whether it's that you're happy with where you're at or you're just kind of in a in-between stage, in between training phases where you don't want to lose the current progress you've already made. You're in a maintenance phase. So you're just doing what you need to keep your current body composition. So those are those terms. The next terms that we're going to break into are exercise terms. So exercise terms meaning you're going to see these verbiages in the app and throughout the workouts. And so we want you to be able to understand what exactly they mean. So first one is a superset. Now a superset means that you're going to have two different exercises and they're going to be paired back to back. These exercises will be done back to back with no rest in between, but you'll usually have a rest after you've done each exercise. So for instance, if I have, if we're doing jumping jacks and sit-ups back to back, you're gonna go to jumping jacks, do jumping jacks, no rest when you finish, go straight into your sit-ups, and then you'll have a small rest before you start over and break into the second set. So that's what a superset is. Most programs tend to use lots of supersets. So the next one is a giant set. A giant set is the same thing as a superset. Basically, it's more than two exercises though. Sometimes, and usually in our programs, you're gonna find that it's 3 exercises. So it'll have jumping jacks, sit-ups, and high knees, right? And those could be back to back to back. You do all 3 of those, then you rest. That's the first set, and then you work through those again. So that's a giant set. Tempo. Tempo is a word that we're gonna use, especially when we're trying to focus on the speed of a contraction, right? And I'm gonna show you this. So if I'm doing a bicep curl, there's 4 different phases of a contraction, right? There is the firing of the muscle and shortening, which is the concentric phase, right? Now there is the time that you have spent up here. Then there's the lowering or the eccentric phase, the time when you're going back to the start position, and then the amount of time that you spend in the start position. We're not going to go far into detail. We don't think it's necessary for a beginner's training program, and even advanced people don't use tempo as much as you might think. So what we're gonna do is sometimes we will add a short phase for the concentric, meaning it's always fast, fiery, powerful, quick, should take 1 second to contract. You'll 1 second at the top, and then what we'll do is we'll slow down the lowering of the lift, or we call it the eccentric phase, right? So we'll have you contract for 1 second and then lower it for 3 seconds instead of 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? So that's what we mean by tempo. So if we say tempo, usually you need to pay attention to the notes. You'll have in there something along the lines of that there is an eccentric portion and you need to lower the weight for a long time. And that adds time and tension to the muscle. So that's the next term, it's eccentric. So if I am shortening a muscle and I'm doing a bicep curl, I am bringing the weight to me, I'm contracting the biceps. That is concentric, okay? Eccentric is the opposite. It's when we have weight in our hand and there's resistance, but instead of just allowing gravity to fully take it and allow our arm to come down, we're going to slowly control that weight and bring it down slowly. And we call that the eccentric phase, where the muscle's still working, but instead of it shortening in concentric, it's actually lengthening. We call that eccentric. So pay attention to the exercises. A lot of times we're gonna add an eccentric phase where we want you to slowly lower the weight for 3 full seconds or sometimes up to 5 full seconds. These are really effective because they can actually help you build a lot of muscle mass and create natural stability in the muscles and joints. The next one is Imam. Now, Imam is an acronym. It's short for every minute on the minute. Now, what this means is sometimes we'll have a 5-minute Imam and we'll have 1 exercise, sometimes 2 exercises. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna work through those 2 or 3 exercises as fast as you can in less than a minute. Once you've done them, let's say I finish them in 40 seconds. That means that there are 20 seconds left until the end of that minute. Those 20 seconds are what I get for a break and I get to rest. If it took me 55 seconds to do those 3, I only get 5 seconds before I jump into the next minute. So that's what we mean by Imam. And we'll go further into depth on what an Imam is in another video. WOD is also short for workout of the day, WOD, it's another acronym. This is just a basic term. It's usually used for conditioning related exercises where we're doing a lot of exercises in a short period of time. And Imam and AMRAP, those could be considered different types of WODs. But don't get stressed too much about it. It's usually at the end of the workout, and this is where we try and bring in the endurance aspect of training. Warm-up is the next term. Warm-up, pretty simple, straightforward. It's just to warm you up. We'll go a little bit more into depth on it as we go into the exercises portion of the videos, but don't worry too much about that. The next one is AMRAP. This is another acronym. It's the last acronym. I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but AMRAP is as many reps or rounds as possible. So we're gonna say, let's say a 10-minute AMRAP. You're gonna have 10 full minutes. There's gonna be a list of exercises and reps along with those exercises. And you have 10 minutes to complete all of those, and you're gonna just go through them as many times and as many rounds as you can until the 10 minutes is up. So that's what an AMRAP means. It'll say AMRAP, all these exercises, it'll say AMRAP 10, right? So you have 10 minutes, do these exercises, and once you've finished them, if you still have time, you complete them again, and you keep going through until the 10 minutes is up. Again, this is another muscular endurance type of training. All right, so that's it for some of those acronyms. You're gonna see more videos on some of these later that will help explain them to you and draw them out so that it's not confusing for you. The next one is macros. If you're not familiar with macros, we're gonna go further into depth about macros. To put it simply, macros is short for macronutrients. Macronutrients are what our food is made up of. You've heard of proteins, fats, carbs, We've all heard of those three. Those are the three building blocks of our food. And so we want you to understand those better, but macros is just short for macronutrients. That's what we use in our program. Metabolic conditioning. Metabolic conditioning, if to put it simply, is that we have a metabolism. A metabolism tends to be the rate that our body burns calories. When we do metabolic conditioning, we do it through diet. We also do it through exercise. The idea behind metabolic conditioning is that whatever we're doing, you don't need to learn too much about the technique, but it's going to increase your metabolism so that your body actually requires more energy for your day. And this will help you burn more calories. This is gonna help you burn fat easier. It's also gonna help you build muscle a lot easier. And you need to be able to understand what your body's doing. We're gonna do another video about this later, but that's the basics of it. Muscular endurance. Muscular endurance is really, it's all about endurance, but it's less about cardio and it's more about how long can your muscles work at a high rate, pushing a certain amount of weight. And that's muscular endurance. There's gonna be a lot of exercises on muscular endurance depending on which track you've chosen. The next one is strength. To put it simply, strength is really just your body's ability to lift a certain amount of weight. So how much weight can your muscles lift? That's the straight definition of strength. We'll get more into that later, but now you understand what strength is. Power. So power is the next term, and power and strength get mixed up really easily. Power is actually how much weight can you lift in a certain amount of time, right? So if I could bench press 100 pounds, some people can bench press it really fast and hard in a second, right? Whereas some people who, if that's like close to their max amount of weight they can lift, it's gonna take them a little bit longer to push all the way up. And so they may have less power generation. So that's what it is power is how much strength can they exert in a short amount of time, right? Shorter amount of the time and the higher the weight, the more power that you are exhibiting. The next term is stability. You're gonna hear this term a lot because stability is so important. Stability is the building block for training. And if we don't have central stability, then we're actually not able to effectively train without putting ourselves at a risk for injury and putting ourselves at really a loss of power and of being able to shape our bodies the way that we want to. We have to have inner stability. And so we incorporate a lot of stability into our warm-up exercises because we want to make sure that you're stable and priming those muscles before we add weight and move them really heavily and really quickly. So that leads us into mobility. Mobility is the next one. This usually falls on, and we're gonna say women are flexible, but not all women are mobile. And the difference is that mobility means how much distance can your joints move while maintaining stability, right? So mobility means that I can move through an appropriate amount of range and I can actually move through a lot of range. So this shoulder can move really well through a full range while it's loaded. So without any weight, I have full range, right? So I would kind of be demonstrating flexibility. And you know what? If someone pulled on my arm, they could probably give me more range of motion. But if I have weight in my hand, now I have to use my muscles to create or recreate that amount of range of motion. And sometimes that can be limited. But we want you to be able to get into full ranges of motion with weight and resistance. The next and last one is hypertrophy. You're gonna hear hypertrophy exercises. To put it simply, trophy means to build up, right? And then hyper is excessive, right? So we're trying to excessively build. Hypertrophy training exercises are going to be used in both the recomposition tracks and the strength building or bulking track. right? So that's that. That's those terms. There's a lot of them. Like I said, we'll have a little list for you. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. And then we'll move on to the next one.